A huge search and rescue operation is underway in the US after a tornado struck several Midwestern states, killing at least 80 people. Tighter COVID restrictions introduced by governments have led to several protests across Europe.
Top diplomats from the G7 countries have met in Liverpool to discuss the build-up of Russian troops on Ukraine's border. Jeff Bezos' rocket company has successfully completed its third expedition. NFL superstar Michael Stratton joined 5 others on the 10-minute flight.
At least 80 people are feared to have been killed in the United States after a tornado tore through several Midwestern states. 6 of the victims died when an Amazon warehouse collapsed in Illinois as a result of what commentators are calling one of the largest storm outbreaks in history. More than 70 people are believed to have died in Kentucky alone, many of them workers at a candle factory struck by the tornado. Scores of search and rescue workers are spending the weekend sifting through the rubble of homes and businesses, searching for survivors. Observers say the tornado was the longest on record, having tracked it touching down for almost 400 kilometres. The last such storm in the region was in March 1925, when a tornado ran over 355 kilometres through Missouri, Illinois and Indiana. This latest event is all the more remarkable, coming in December, when colder weather normally limits the impact of tornadoes. President Joe Biden approved an emergency disaster declaration for Kentucky on Saturday and pledged to support all the affected states. In the Austrian capital Vienna, tens of thousands of people took part in a protest after the Freedom Party called for demonstrations against mandatory COVID vaccinations and home confinement for those who haven't yet been jabbed. The party's chief, Herbert Kickl, spoke at the rally and joined in the singing of the country's national anthem. In Spain, thousands of people also marched peacefully through the centre of Madrid on Saturday in protests against the government's approach to the coronavirus. Protesters, flanked by police vans, held banners reading "Fake Pandemic" and "I won't get vaccinated." And there were similar scenes in Catalonia on Saturday, where thousands turned out on the streets of Barcelona to protest against the introduction of COVID passports in the region. Close to 90% of people eligible for vaccination have received 2 doses. Cases have risen, but hospitals are coping so far. Further north in Luxembourg, several hundred people also protested over the weekend. COVID restrictions have been tightened recently to include an obligatory health pass for access to leisure and hospitality premises to prove vaccination or recent recovery.
Any invasion by Russia would be a strategic mistake for which there would be serious consequences. That's according to the British Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, and her UK counterpart, Anthony Blinken. The UK has welcomed top diplomats from the world's wealthiest nations to Liverpool to discuss the build-up of Russian troops and weapons on Ukraine's border.
And of course, the G7 countries, as the world's leading democracies and economies, need to come together to advance the frontiers of freedom. We need to show a positive, proactive approach in making ourselves safer, more competitive, and better able to stand up for the values we believe in. We need to defend ourselves against the growing threats from hostile actors.
Truss also urged free democratic nations not to rely on Russian gas supplies, such as the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Foreign ministers will also discuss the coronavirus vaccination campaign during the 2-day meeting.
The Bosnian Serb parliament adopted a declaration on Friday that will weaken the war-ravaged Balkan country's central authority. Lawmakers vote on starting a procedure for Bosnian Serbs to withdraw from the Bosnian army, security services, tax system and judiciary. The Bosnian Serb member of the tripartite Bosnian presidency, Milorad Dodik, said it was a historic parliament session that would strengthen the Bosnian Serb mini-state formed as part of a US-sponsored peace agreement that ended the Bosnian War in 1995.
Despite the fact that it is highly unlikely that the announced changes will come into effect anytime soon, there is a fear that the current rhetoric and moves made by the authorities in Republika Srpska could push Bosnia into an even deeper crisis.
During a ceremony, a member of the Bosnian presidency warned that Dodik's policies are taking the wrong path and called on the US and the EU to crack down on him and his associates. The United States has already imposed a travel ban and other sanctions on Dodik, and both American and German officials have recently threatened more in case Bosnian Serbs further weaken Bosnia's central institutions.
Environmental protesters in Belgrade have blocked roads for a third consecutive weekend. For now, the government has abandoned legislation that would enable foreign companies mine lithium, further polluting western Serbia. However, critics say the ruling Conservatives need to abolish all future lithium excavation projects. Protesters fear the authorities will inevitably prioritise foreign investment over environmental concerns. NFL legend Michael Stratton has returned to Earth following a 10-minute space mission. The former New York Giant joined 5 others aboard the New Shepard capsule, owned by Jeff Bezos' rocket company Blue Origin. This was the company's 3rd passenger flight. The founder of Amazon journeyed on the debut launch in July, while Star Trek actor William Shatner was welcomed on the 2nd. The reusable automated rocket is aptly named after Alan Shepard, the first American in space. The astronaut's eldest daughter joined the Super Bowl star for Saturday's expedition. Laura Shepard Churchley packed a tiny piece of her father's Freedom 7 Mercury capsule, as well as a few other keepsakes from his Apollo 14 mission. Whereas the ABC co-host brought a Super Bowl ring, his number 92 jersey and a football along for the ride. Blue Origin originally planned the launch for Thursday, but high winds forced the crew to postpone.
Giant wave surfer Andrew Cotton has been saved from drowning by a fellow surfer. The athlete fell from his board into the water at the Portuguese seaside town of Nazaré, known for its huge waves. The Brit was trapped in the rocks at the foot of the town's iconic lighthouse when Brazilian surfer Marcelo Luna jet skied out to release him.
The water was so aerated, I was sort of sinking, so I pulled my inflatable vest, and then there was like a moment there. I was like, okay, right, this is definitely the worst. You know, like this can go, you know, pretty bad.
Marcelo said he became aware of Cotton's distress when people started shouting. Then he realised the Brit was stuck dangerously between the rocks and the wave breaks. This place in Nazaré has always been a nightmare for us surfers. We know that. We train hard so that it doesn't happen, but it can happen, and it did. But I'm happy because I was there. Nazaré is one of the world's top spots for giant wave surfing. It is also notorious for how dangerous the waves can be. As Luna says, what matters is not the surfing, but getting all the surfers home safe.
Composed of iconic photographs and new unpublished works, McCurry's images are known for their humanity, dignity, compassion, elegance and proportion. The exhibition in Mayol Museum in Paris takes us on a long journey from Afghanistan to Southeast Asia and from Africa to Latin America. This vast and fascinating body of work always retains the human element that made his celebrated image of the Afghan girl so powerful. Across from the Kremlin on the banks of the Moskva River, a century-old power plant is transformed by a billionaire gas tycoon into a temple of contemporary art in Moscow and Russia. The vast interior, more than 35,000 square meters, has both enormous and intimate spaces for exhibitions and events. The GES2 Art Center was designed by star Italian architect Renzo Piano and promises to house the biggest international names as well as Russian rising stars. The Museo Thyssen-Bornemisza presents until January 30th the first retrospective devoted to René Magritte to be held in Madrid since 1989. With more than 70 works, including paintings and works on paper, along with a selection of photographs and films, the exhibition emphasizes the repetitive element present in the work of the great surrealist painter, whose obsessive themes constantly reappear with innumerable variations.